Get this, guys, this game is already breaking the record books. The National Weather Service issuing a rare heat advisory with temperatures possibly topping 90 degrees. And did I mention it's February? Gunman's rampage could have been a lot worse. The state attorney saying today that he actually contemplated another attack, this one in Madison, Wisconsin. But unlike the one here in Highland Park, Illinois, hadn't done enough planning and so decided to call that one off. And Brittany Griner's wife says the president's response to Griner's letter gave her hope. And now she's pleading with the Russian government for mercy. And Hollywood's biggest night is also date night for two real-life movie star couples. And Blue Origin's still keeping a close watch on these high winds. They've sent up weather balloons to monitor what's happening in the upper-level atmosphere. The Free Britney chants that we've been hearing for the past few hours outside of the courthouse, now a reality. The judge terminating that conservatorship. Just want to give you an idea of just how well planned out this attack was. Again, you mentioned it, Diane. Police say that he showed up to the scene in women's clothing. Authorities say after that attack, he dropped the weapon, dropped down from the roof, and then walked among the same people that he had just sent panicking and running for their lives. And judging by the explosion of cheers and excitement, I think they share that relief with Daunte Wright's family, especially considering kind of the mixed signals that we had been getting from the jury over the past, I'd say 48 hours. Of course, with Tuesday, that question to the judge, hey, what happens if we don't reach a verdict? As for the situation here on the ground, of course, this is a desperate search. This is the largest Florida task force response aside from hurricane response. So as we're talking about severe weather moving in, there's that possibility that crews might have to break away. We know that the president has already previously approved a disaster declaration for the state of Florida. We know that he's going to be meeting with first responders, also talking with family members during this difficult time. But as for the response, we have to expect that there would be a continued dialogue about more resources.
The storm also spawned a rare winter tornado that tore through western Alabama, killing one person and critically injuring three others. ABC's Morgan Norwood has the latest.
As that massive winter storm marches across the country, 160 million Americans in 35 states on alert for snow, ice, flooding rain, and brutal cold. In Ohio, the winds whipping the frigid cold air and the snow, narrowing visibility. ABC's Trevor Ault on the ground in Cleveland.
Torrents of rain ahead of this snowfall washed all of the salt off the roads, and now all that rain is frozen. The crews are trying to play catch up now, but the roads are so icy, at least one of these plows was hit by a car this morning.
In Tennessee, trees collapsing under the weight of thick ice. Over in Detroit, the city bracing for a massive snowplow operation, expecting another several inches.
We've been preparing for this storm early last week.
The storm's path extending as far south as Texas, nearly a year after a catastrophic freeze buckled the state's power grid in one of the worst blackouts in U.S. history. Officials say so far the grid is holding, though conditions did trigger outages.
We are dealing with one of the most significant icing events that we've had in the state of Texas in at least several decades.
Over in Alabama, a tornado leaving serious damage in Sawyerville. At least one person killed, several injured. As the winter storm continues to stretch toward the east, thousands of flights canceled. Travelers just hoping to catch a break.
It's right in the middle of the storm. I was checking the Doppler. So, again, just fingers crossed. I can't control it.
Morgan Norwood, ABC News, Los Angeles. After a false start to launch week, former NFL great and GMA anchor Michael Strahan, along with his Blue Origin teammates, are finally ready for liftoff.
It's going to be an adventure, but it's going to be a fun one.
Strahan and other crew members were originally slated to rocket to space aboard Blue Origin's New Shepard Thursday. The mission postponed due to high winds.
If those winds are really strong at 10,000 feet, it can actually blow our capsule outside of our landing area.
And when it comes to safety, the crew is prepped for it all.
Learning how to buckle up in zero G, learning how to get in your seat in the first place.
Sure.
Learning the access control panel, the crew control panel.
Strahan will travel to low orbit alongside 5 others, including Alan Shepard's daughter, whose dad was the first American in space and who the spacecraft is named after. We got a look inside the exact replica of the rocket. So this capsule has some of the biggest windows in the space industry. And check this out. Each of the crew members get their own. They also have a screen that tells them everything that's going on with the flight.
So what are you going to be doing when you're inside?
Well, I'm gonna try to do some flips, and then I'll stay by my window and you all enjoy yourself freedom of floating.
But as much as Michael says he'll be taking in the sights, he's also taking up a few personal items to make this trip even more memorable.
My Hall of Fame ring, my Super Bowl ring, some special watches. And the most special thing to me, when my father passed away and they had his military funeral, the bullets that they fired from the gun.
And just like the last Blue Origin missions, the crew will experience about 3 minutes of weightlessness. The entire flight, just 11 minutes long, and the capsule will then parachute back down to Earth. Morgan Norwood, ABC News, Van Horn, Texas.
Turn now to the new research examining deaths in police custody in California and accusations that the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office has misclassified numerous deaths in recent years that actually involve physical trauma. It's an area that's faced more scrutiny in the wake of the death of George Floyd in 2020. And at the center of it all are families still grieving and searching for answers. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood with this in-depth report.
That was my baby. He was a mama's boy, proud of it. He was a natural artist, knew how to write lyrics. He was also a rapper. And I'm not saying John was perfect, but John loved kids. Everybody took to him. He loved life. He felt he could do so much to help the youth because of what he'd been through.
It's been 13 years since Helen Jones lost her son, John Horton III. A mother still grieving, she keeps these pictures of John on her phone.
I hurt every single day that I get up. I know that my baby is gone.
Her son, John Horton, died in solitary confinement at the Twin Towers Correctional Facility in Los Angeles in March of 2009. He had just turned 22 years old. Jones says sheriff's deputies initially told her John hung himself.
At what point did you start to question the details surrounding your son's death?
I mean, from the minute I heard, and he told me these exact words, he said, Mama, if somebody ever come to you and tell you that I did anything to myself, you know they're not telling you the truth. And this happened 3 months later.
According to John Horton's initial autopsy, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner found that he died by hanging and other undetermined factors. Demanding answers, Helen Jones asked the forensic pathologist from the medical examiner's office to take her page by page through the coroner's report. She says he pointed her to an overwhelming amount of physical trauma.
They buzzed John's liver, they buzzed John's kidney, they buzzed John's pancreas.
What were some of the other injuries?
Severely injured his pelvis, hit him so hard in his head that they left the lines from the print of the flashlight on his forehead. While they did this, they had John handcuffed by one hand. And the handcuff was so tight on his hand that it left a clear ring dug down into his flesh.
In 2015, Helen Jones filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Los Angeles County and the sheriff's office, alleging several deputies participated in a series of beatings that led to her son's death. The case was settled in 2016. 2 of the deputies involved were fired.
They admitted in depositions that he was beat.
Horton's autopsy has since been amended to say the cause of his death has been deferred, meaning the cause of death has not been determined and that the medical examiner is requesting more investigation into the death. But for Jones, that reclassification only unleashed more heartbreak.
It's been 13 years and his life was stolen. He didn't die from natural causes. He didn't take his own life. His life was stolen. So he's missed. I miss him every day.
Activists say John Horton's death was just one instance of a number of potentially misclassified deaths by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner. Dr. Terrence Kill of UCLA analyzed 58 autopsies of jail deaths from 2009 to 2018. He says the findings were disturbing.
A carceral space should be one of the safest places in the world. Every single aspect of your life is controlled, from the time you wake up to the food that you eat to the air that you breathe. Carceral staff are constantly watching the inmates who are in the jail environment. But in reality, it's the exact opposite. One, we found that the overwhelming majority of people who died in Los Angeles County jails during this time period were African-American men, followed by Latinx men. Most of these deaths were men who were under the age of 40 years. Half of them were classified as natural deaths.
Keel's report claims 54% of those cases classified as natural deaths had evidence of physical trauma.
The coroners and the medical examiners who are charged with the task of telling us how members of our communities are dying are not doing their job. And they are often coming to conclusions about the death of our loved ones who are in the context of law enforcement in ways that provide cover for law enforcement.
The LA County Medical Examiner's Office refutes Keel's findings. In a statement to ABC News, they say Keel's report contains several significant mischaracterizations and false statements, and that, quote, the most egregious implication made by the report is that the DMEC doctors are willfully misclassifying deaths to an opinion that is not based on their specialized expertise in forensic pathology.
The way these reports are written, it's very clear that there's an attempt to minimize the role of the carceral staff and the deputies in the jail for being involved in their death. The way this often happens is that the pre-existing conditions of the individual, whether it's mental illness, respiratory illness, asthma, are often cited as the reason for why this individual died.
I'm not gonna run, man. It's the same argument the defense gave in the death of George Floyd.
I know I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
When former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was on trial for his murder. In court, a medical examiner testifying that Floyd died of a heart condition.
Mr. Floyd had a sudden cardiac arrhythmia or cardiac arrhythmia.
So you see in the writing of his actual death, his own body, his black biology is to blame for why he died. Not the knee of Derek Chauvin, not the countless officers who were on his legs, who were indifferent to his calls that he couldn't breathe.
Keel also claims that law enforcement were present during the autopsy in 51 of the 58 cases that were analyzed. He says the chief physician at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department attended 14 of those autopsies.
These are either detectives from the Sheriff's Department or officers themselves that are in the room during the effort to actually do the autopsy, and we see this as a conflict of interest.
In a statement to ABC News, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department says the LASD does not make determinations on manner and cause of death, but does conduct extensive internal inquiries into every death which happens within one of its jail facilities. A new bill that's making its way through the California state legislature would make the medical examiner's office independent from the Sheriff's Department throughout the state.
This bill would go a long way, but it's not enough. Our jails should not be killing people.
Another bill would require the death certificate to indicate whether a person died at the hands of law enforcement or while in the custody of law enforcement officers, including in a city or county jail or state prison. For now, Keel hopes his research fuels a wave of change, not just in California, but from coast to coast. And for Helen Jones, her heartache has been the pulse of her activism, advocating for her son's case, and through the organization Dignity Empowered Now, helping other families whose loved ones are incarcerated.
I just don't want him to be another statistic. And not only for John, I'm fighting for everybody else, baby, too.
Our thanks to Morgan for that. Still ahead here on